My name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and we're reading Saturnastra Loki. This is Chapter 3, Part 2. Between you and me, your former home is overrated, and the statutory limitations only apply to this world, and you can try the whole Arya thing if you start feeling a bit nostalgic for your favorite placing, said Wooden's fire demons. And jumping on the table, King then said in a strong voice, "My friends, take note. And we shall embark on a quest to make a series of pleasure gardens for our amusement. And sure, economic improvement is a must, but we must be wise as to how to invest it, and investing in fun is always a sure thing, especially for our intellectual development. And at the center of it all, there shall be a glass library filled with picture books on all subjects imaginable, and we shall dispel the myth that we nagas are illiterate, and we will surpass all of those so-called higher beings in both knowledge and culture, and in no time it will be them who ape us instead of the other way around." "About your pleasure garden idea, just what do you have in mind?" asked Pierre, smiling cynically. "Get your mind out of the gutter, Pierre," snapped King. "Ah," said a few of the others who were simply staying out of the debate. And one of the silent parties came forth and said, "What you want is a sort of glorified museum?" "Meh," answered King, gesturing with his left hand, and then he added, "This is just a rough idea, and we might feel like doing something else the following morning. Still then, we should avoid letting our whims get the best of us, lest we end up leaving everything half-baked. Short-term plans, the pleasure gardens, the mercenary war, and make capitalism economy based on food. Three simple tasks, and we go from there, and the latter two can be done simultaneously. And if we stay within the center of Lusitania, we can make cross without running the risk of invasion," suggested Pierre. "Ah, yes, and while we visit the places with the mercenaries, we would also collect samples of different crops to produce the best possible output," suggested King. "Ah, yes, and now we have a working strategy," said Ida, clapping. And it was then decided that King would leave the tower during his army in the noble profession of mercenary work. And just to be safe, he would only take half his army with him, and most of the mercenary orders were always less than 5,000 soldiers. And Artsy of the mountain had contact with the traveling merchant families, and through them he could get a word of the Naga's mercenary divisions, and still there was more pressing issues at hand. In order for trade to flow smoothly, the laws had to be clear of highwaymen. And aside from Aragon, the Nagas had trading contracts with some of the bordering towns and villages, and the roads there were rather dangerous to pass. With this initial step in mind, King left with his soldiers, and traveling with him was Garganta and Patty. And Patty was the wife of the Tower General Winston, and together with his twin Virgil, they kept the army in working order. And Winston was a descendant of squirrel monkeys, so his look was quite similar to King, except that he did not have long hair. And with the elegant uniform, Winston would march ahead of the army, drums blazing, and the passing of the Nagi army could be heard from miles away, much to the annoyance of anyone trying to get a decent night's sleep. And this branch of the Nagi army was strictly nocturnal. However, they could do without sleeping for more than 6 days, should the need arise. Like they travel at night making loud noises. Traveling with them was the invisible army, the birds. And in exchange for food, the birds maintained vigilance whenever the Nagas had to rest, and humans believe that this had started as a cleaning symbiosis, and truth of the matter was a little different. And for some reason, this flock of birds around 300 years ago started looking after the Nagas, sharing information and whatnot, and the tradition had been passed on to descendants. And the birds ranged from quite a number of species, and they had a non-aggressive pack among each other, even when dealing with birds of prey. And the types of birds in this flock were Eurasian jays, red-winged blackbirds, Lucy warblers, purple martins, bobolinks, red knots, broader-winged hawks, griffin vultures, harpy eagles, and the feathered waxwing. Due to this vast variety of birds, the human species had not caught on. However, the griffin vultures were starting to be associated with the Nagas, and they were killed off from time to time in human settlements bordering the Lusitania Peninsula. And they just believed that these vultures were spying on them or were ushering some sort of bad omen. And logistic-wise, the Naga army was still a bit of a mess, and the peninsula did not have the means of supporting horses, and only the dead horse population could survive the years of Lusitania, and most of the armies now had upgraded to horses, and even the Armenian armies had their magnificent pale, shadow-light, warm-blood horses. Instead of such mounts, their Nagas had yaks, llamas, and donkeys. So while medieval armies far from the comfort of horses, the Nagas always had to build tracks in advance to deal with that problem. For the following months, King spent clearing the trade routes, and this involved the raiding of bandit camps as well as making deals with highwaymen. And as the month negotiations, the Naga caravans could pass undisturbed towards Aragon, Urizen, and Sassari, and the other important commerce centers. And the first stage of the mission went without any heat problems, and it was the second stage that was not going as well as King had planned. And sure, he had made quick work of his enemy, and the humans were not too keen on fighting such an unknown element. However, even among friendly cities and townfolk, there was still great distrust of the Nagas, and no one seemed willing to hire their help, and even when there was no one else to turn to. So dude, we're mercenary now, and then we're not hiring it, but you had nobody. Nobody here is willing to help. He said, we still don't want it. we're happy with our bandits. Nobody wanted to hire them. Time, bro?
70 minutes.
More than once, King had offered to help a feud at the border of the abyss, and the lords had prepared to watch their castles burned and asked the Naga for help. And it was frustrating to say the least, and one night King said to Virgil sadly, what's the point of having an organized army if you can't use it for anything? If we don't get any serious work, I feel like skills will go rusty, said Virgil, looking sternly towards the fire. And around the camp, the Naga soldiers were busy with mock battles, and the night was aglow with the sound of clashing swords and screeching, and it was a nightmare for anyone who was not nocturnal. Maybe we could help them, even if they do not ask for help, suggested Patty. We don't do charity work, Patty, said Virgil sternly. We could charge them anyway, and then raid them if they refuse to pay, suggested King, laughing. We already have a bad reputation as is. We do not need to make it worse, said Virgil, narrowing his eyes. Work, hate first, but like us later. They alive, suggested Gargantua. You must be stupid or so, and I think they will hate us even if we save them from a tight situation, mused Patty sadly. Look here, Patty, we can either be loved or get paid, and since we cannot earn the love and affection of humans, I suggest we strive for the latter, insisted King. If that is how you plan on to do things, why not just cut the middleman and then just raid them instead of becoming mercenaries, suggested Virgil. Because there's no need for us to do so, and why kill the cow when we can keep getting milk from it, asked King. Good point, said Virgil, sitting back down. And the night was spent conversing and concocting half-baked ideas, and the forest was filled with soft murmur of blooming flowers and falling leaves. And a thin mist was rising as hints of the sun could be seen over the horizon. And the town before the Naga camp was no longer burning crimson, and another town had been ravished, and due to the misplaced pride of their leader, and the vultures flew towards the town to feast on the carcass of the recently deceased, and women, men, and even small children were being put to the axe. And as soon as word of this was passed to the Naga, the butchers themselves were butchered by the Nagas. And while the town was being put back into working order, King sent a message to the neighboring Aragon. Leo read the message with great concern, and the town, or what was left of it, was known as Dice. And during the war, it had pretended to side with Persian, and when the army had left, it had taken the opportunity to attack the seemingly defenseless Aragon. And even with 1/10 of the army, the walls had not fallen. And since Aragon had chosen to abandon Tars to his fate. And without the protection of Aragon, Tars had suffered countless raids from bandits over the last 4 years, and the one just witnessed by the Nagas had been the final nail in the coffin. And while walking in town, King was thrown around by a survivor maiden, and he keenly dodged it, but Garganta's reflex had not been that quick, and so she got struck in the head, and angrily she went towards the maiden, and she grabbed her skull. And Garganta proceeded to bash the woman's head against the wall till she was left a battered mess. And King watched the proceedings coolly, and herald of Leo came to King, and he ordered, stop this brutality. That human woman is the one who started it. We come here and save her, and she treats us like we are the bad guys," said King, folding his arm, and he added, "And besides, Garganta did not kill her. She will be fine by morning, though a little bit dazed." The heralds took the injured maiden away, and looking sternly, he said to King, "If you wish to live in the civilized world, you will have to forgo your barbarism. Unfortunately for you, the Nagas have an eye for an eye mentality. It is not my way, but I respect it nonetheless," said King sternly. And the herald shook his head sadly, not saying anything, and the following night, Garganta spent attending to the wounds of the maiden she had impulsively injured. And despite much advancement, the Nagas still were driven by their baser instinct, and Garganta had felt that the woman wanted to kill her beloved king, and thus she had reacted accordingly. And Garganta generally felt guilty about overreacting to such a feeble little rock throw. Time?
13 minutes.
And as for King, he was touring the dungeons with Leo's herald, and his name was Palatine Smith, and he did not belong to any noble household, and he was a well-mannered, soft-spoken. And Herald Palatine was always having a hard time dealing with King and others like him, and he found King's eccentricity laughable, and his magic a little bit unnerving. And without much warning, King would clear the rubble blocking the path by exploding it, and after a huge boom, only ashes would remain, and King was aware that his magic was making Paladin uncomfortable. As such, he would always choose the most flashy, loud spells to deal with whatever situation was afoot. And if the house was burning to cinders, water in the form of dragons would be deployed. And if someone was starving, King would manifest food out of thin air. And if someone was missing an arm, King would grow it back in an instant by touching the person with the tip of his wooden staff. And trembling in awe, Paladin commented, "That is one powerful magic staff." "Nah, it has its moments," said King, shrugging his shoulders with disdain. He was not about to start a magical debate about the staff. The staff was an artifact gifted to him by his mother, and it did not do anything in particular. It was a small, simple wooden shape. It had a small, simple wooden shape, and King felt that it was a perfect symbol of his uselessness in comparison to the awesomeness that was his twin Ahi. Time, bro?
11 minutes.
The dungeons itself were poorly lit and dingy, and the floor was fresh with the acrid smell of blood and grime. And there were about 39 prisoners, and others had died the night before, and Herald Paladin had a ledger with the supposed crimes of the prisoner. As King walked the cells, the prisoners started getting riled up, and they said to the herald, "My lord, please have mercy on us." And coughing, he said coolly, "Your fate is not for..." And coughing, King said coolly, "Your fate is not for me to decide." And the herald read to the king the charges of each of the men and woman, and the five women King had them be released, and they had been accused of witchcraft, and aside from elementary alchemy, the maidens lacked the talent for magic, and the skill did not turn them into a coven. And the leader said to King, "Thank you, fellow magic user, and we promise to use whatever powers we have for your aid. I have no use for you or your weird sisters, and you may go in peace." He then added, "Or you may go in peace to another town. If you stay, I cannot guarantee your safety. The locals still hate you, and will finish what the Lord started." "But sir, we can't leave just like that. The roads are perilous and we need protection," said the maiden trembling. "The roads south have been cleared, and you have nothing to fear. Be on your way," said King, putting his hand on her shoulder. "But sir," Chief insisted, "be on your way. If you want something from me, you must work for it. And I'm not running a charity," said King caustically. "But what will you have me do? I'd add the proper herbs to you," harder she started, when King interrupted her. "Nor will you get the chance to poison others. Your so-called healing skills do more harm than good," he said, smiling. Then he made a kneel before the king and held his shoulder, and she said soothingly, "There must be something else that we can do for you, and I have a daughter on the outside, and maybe if you lend us an armed escort, she will be yours." So and with a swing of his staff, he struck the woman away from him, and spitting at her, he said coldly, "Get your mind out of the gutter. Just because you ask for help, I am in no obligation to give it, and you are strong enough to help yourself, so stop being lazy and be on your way." Time, bro?
8 minutes.
The Herald Paladin was silent during this proceeding, and once the so-called witches were out of the dungeon, King continued on his tour, and the other prisoners were rather silent after watching this incident, and an old man inside the cell said, I haven't much to offer in the way of word, but I can offer sound advice, if it will please you. King said, releasing the man from his shackles, I am all ears. You should have helped them. The rules of chivalry demand that men help out women. And more than that, it would have made you look benevolent, and first impressions are important, and if you wish to rule over this town, started the old man, when King raised his hand to silence him. And patting the shoulder of the old man, King said, let me stop you there, and I have no conquest ambitions, and I am simply here to get paid for my rescue service, and once I get my money's worth from the vault, you are on your own. Wait, what? You can't just leave us like this in this void. What if other raiders come? Asked the old man alarmed. Not my problem. It will be my problem if the town folks chose to pay for me to put this sorry excuse of a town back in working order. And in any case, you had Leo. If his sobriety allows, he might take an interest in ties. Now good day to you, said King before continuing. The herald commented while watching the old man leave. That old man is a murderer, and are you certain it was wise to let him go? In here, he's not being remotely productive. How is having him ride going to help him repay his debt to society? Asked King. But he is dangerous, sir, said the herald paladin, and he's gonna bring himself to call the monkey standing before him king. Narrowing his eyes, King pointed to the old man and said, does he look dangerous to you? He has been running there so long he can barely walk. And King started howling and making odd quacking sounds, and there was an echo by Gargantua and the rest of the troops, and frowning Paladin asked, what was that all about? Why don't you figure it out, said King, laughing. So then he just made a bunch of monkey sounds to, mess around with the herald. In this same quixotic manner, King dealt with each of the prisoners one by one, and those that were strong enough he exiled, and a few he did offer a definite task to help them redeem themselves, though there was one he did kill right away. And as soon as the prisoner saw the king approach, he said, no, let me explain. And before he could explain anything, King started curling his hand and turned into a snake which bit the prisoner. And the prisoner writhed in the floor for a few minutes, foaming at the mouth and convulsing before dying from the snake bite on his neck. And picking up the snake, King commented, now that is a new trick. Wait, that was not done on purpose? Asked the herald, his eyes widened as the staff returned to its original shape. So the staff turned into a snake and it bit someone and then it went back to normal. And I said, well, I don't remember that he could do that. I said, wait, what? But then you own the stupid staff. Well, I was going to kill him anyway, but a less swifter and less painful, and the staff guessed my intentions and got ahead of me, said King. And the tip of the staff then sprouted something that resembled a climbing vine close to the tip. And from the vines there grew flower buds, and King, on my surprise, made the herald paladin shudder in terror. For him, magic gone awry was far more terrifying than any proper spellcasting. And once the business in the dungeon was concluded, King and his men paid for lodging at the inn and on several of the residential homes, and he was well received by the folks, except for those who knew that the castle had been hollowed out by the Nagas. And aside from the structure, there was not really much left of anything. And the Nagas had even taken the turn by reading shares. And after much insistence, Virgil and the rest of the army agreed to linger in Tai, at least till Leo's reinforcements arrived. This task ended on taking 3 months, and the Nagas stayed till fall, and late summer in Thais were not too humid. That time, fall in Thais was not too humid, and though from time to time there was extremely bad thunderstorm, and then during one of those particular storms, one of the inns caught fire, and the humans were trying the old-fashioned buckets of water, but the sky refused to let any say. And before the last floor became unsalvageable, King had rushed from the neighboring inn, and he entered the inferno alone, and he dragged from the top of the floor a fat old lady and her cat and 2 children.
What?
An overweight old lady.
Huh.
Alright, better, bro?
No, I'm just curious what's going on with that old lady.
And then come fire, and then he rescued 2 people from the top of the inn that weren't able to get out. That's it. A lightning struck an inn. Then he went inside the inn. And then he rescued some folks that were stuck there. Time, bro?
4 minutes.
The Naga still did not know how to handle the flame, and so they proceeded to screech at it while bashing their fists on the floor. And at the moment their semblance to their ancestor was uncanny, and the humans too reacted to the same with the same awe and amazement. And only the owner of the servants were making any true effort to put out the fire. And annoying king said the words of magic and waved his staff in an arc. And the flowers bloomed crimson, and from them small firebirds emerged. And they entered the flames, and quickly they consumed the fire while growing larger in size. And once the fire had been put out, the large firebirds flew into the sky and exploded in the form of fireworks. And Chuckling Kid said to Garganta, "And you say you could not fight fire with fire?" Garganta rolled her eyes, and she returned to the inn. And this was the only noteworthy incident that occurred during the Naga stay in Thais. And at the start of fall, Hero Paladin returned with a garrison of 200 soldiers, a dragon for intimidation purposes, and their new leader. And the dragon was alone from the dragon rider, and his name was Mucha. And the dragon riders referred to his king. The dragon rider refers to his kind as chromatic dragons, and the humans always treated these dragons as 5 separate breeds. And the best known of their kind came in black, red, blue, green, or white. Mucha had a strong, hardy build with wings that were more useful for gliding or for flying short distances, and the wings fused along the horns of the back to become a large part of the flat tail. And unbeknownst to the human, these dragons were amphibians, and they tended to thrive better near water, and one could always find them in the largest of the twin rivers, the one that diverged and made its way over the southern part of the continent, and even flowed into Lusitania. And as for Musha, he was of a less common color, orange, and like his skin, his face was shaped like an arrowhead, with a horn over the nose and a sharp protrusion under the chin. And he knew Leo since he was a baby, and loved him as he was his own. And like Marduke, he had grown distant because of Leo's alcoholism, and since Leo was making an effort to change, Musha was going to help his former playfellow. And satisfied that the town was in good hands, King started organizing his departure, and before leaving, Musha knocked on King's window. As a whole, the chromatic dragons were mid-sized dragons, and standing up, Musha was only as a floor high. He jumped and flapped his wings each time to reach the window, and eventually King felt like answering, and chuckling him, looking down at Musha, he said, "Well, what is it?" "Are you his brother?" asked Musha. "Yeah, what of it?" said King, frowning.
Alright, so let's in a minute.
God bless.